Welcome to episode 2 of our podcast. I'm Chris. That's Matthew. And this is Generational Talent. So we'll get right into it. Talking NFL, looking back on all the way back to Thursday of last week, you had the Broncos blowing the doors off the Saints. Obviously, the Saints didn't have Derek Carr. You had Spencer Rattler, fifth-round pick starting. Are the Broncos a legit playoff contender?
I don't know if they are. I don't think they are. I think that division's very tough. I think obviously the Chiefs aren't an easy team to beat. I don't think the Chargers, even though they lost last night, I don't think they're an easy team to beat. And the Raiders defense, I mean, I'm a Rams fan, so I got to see it firsthand. I think it's better than people think. Max Crosby's obviously legit. So with that being said, though, I think they could be a playoff team next year for sure. I think Bo Nix is a
well. I mean, if the playoffs started right now, they would be the 7th seed at 4-3.
Yeah.
So I would definitely put them in the contending. You've got the Chargers who lost on a heartbreaker last night to the Cardinals, who, by the way, haven't scored a touchdown in 15 quarters. You got the Bengals right there, making a charge. We'll talk about them a little bit here in a minute. And after that, I mean, you got the Dolphins, which apparently Tua's coming back. But then you got the Raiders, the Jets, which, well, we're definitely going to get into them.
Yeah. I mean, I think this was a revenge game for Sean Payton. So I think he wanted to look really good in this game. First time back in New Orleans since he left. And I think Bo Nix is a young version of Drew Brees. He's mobile like Drew Brees was when he was young. And I think that Sean Payton knows how to deal with that kind of quarterback. So I can see them making the playoffs this year. I do think it'll be a tough road still.
I mean, it's definitely
locked in.
Yeah, they're definitely in the mix. They're a couple games ahead of the other teams behind them that are competing. I mean, if Knicks can stay healthy, and I just feel like they definitely have a path. Let's put it to you that way.
And I think their defense looks way better than it did last year.
Yeah, I agree. Game of the weekend, in my opinion, was Detroit versus Minnesota.
I agree.
Came down to a last-second field goal. I think two of the best teams in the NFC, obviously right now, in the best division in the NFC. Here's a good question for you. It's a two-part question. Is Jared Goff the MVP right now, or is it Lamar?
I want it to be Jared Goff because, number one, he was a Ram. So I'm always, whenever Jared Goff's not playing against the Rams, I'm rooting for Jared Goff. So I want it to be him, and I think that he has played phenomenally. But with that being said, I think Lamar will. If say the season ended right now, I think Lamar would win.
I don't even think Lamar is the MVP of his own team.
He's been playing lights out. I have
Derrick Henry.
Team. He's great.
Derrick Henry is the difference on that team. Derrick Henry opens up that whole offense. And my thing with Jared Goff is the last 3 weeks he's had a perfect quarterback rating. The first half of all 3 games, he has in the last 3 games he's had more touchdown passes than incompletions.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I could see it for sure.
So my thing is, this is the second part of my question. In the long run, are the Rams going to regret trading Jared Goff?
No,
I know you got a
I don't.
Super Bowl. You got a Super Bowl, but Jared Goff is 30. He's got another 5-6 years in front of him,
If not more. I
and
mean, quarterbacks are staying.
well, I'm just saying, solid years, five,
Yeah.
6 years. Um, he was an afterthought in that trade. They had to trade him
Yeah.
because of the way the salary caps and everything. He was an afterthought, and he worked his tail off and got to the point where he is one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the league. If not, like I said, the best quarterback in the league right now.
I think the Rams aren't going to regret it in the long run. We got a Super Bowl out of it. It had been 20 years since we had gotten a Super Bowl. We'd been obviously to the Super Bowl against Patriots and lost. And I think
With Jared
Stafford was
Goff.
the different. Yeah, exactly, with Jared Goff. And I think Stafford was the
But that was
difference
his
maker.
second year in the league, wasn't it?
Third. Because his first year in the league, Rams didn't have Sean McVay. And
yeah,
then
they had Jeff Fisher.
And then we had Sean McVay and Jared. Like, because when we drafted
second
Jared Goff,
year,
it was like
second year Carson Wentz was going to be the MVP until he got hurt, and he got drafted second. And then so third year. I mean, so let's say the Lions go on and win 2 Super Bowls in the next 6 years.
I think it's hard to say because
the Rams are stuck rebuilding.
I don't disagree with that, but what the Lions did, they got Jared Goff, he was a big piece. He is a big piece to their offense, obviously. But the 2 first-round picks that we gave them, I think, helped them a lot. I know one of them they got Gibbs off of.
It's a quarterback-driven league. It's a quarterback-driven league. If you don't have a quarterback, you will not succeed.
Now, if their offensive line gets banged up and they're down to some backups, Jared Goff's weakness is when he gets pressured.
That's almost every quarterback in the league, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the Texans this week. I mean, the Packers just swarmed C.J. Stroud. I mean, he threw for less than 100 yards.
Yeah. I mean, with it being, I said that Jared Goff is not as good under pressure. He has had, I think I remember them talking about this during the game. He has one of the best passer ratings against, I think he might even be close to perfect against blitz. When they blitz him, he's got one of the best passer ratings in the league. With that being said, he obviously has gotten better. I don't think the Rams are going to regret it. Maybe they'll regret it this year because the Lions could go and win a Super Bowl. But I think a lot of it is just that gritty toughness that Detroit has. I think it's that chip. They have even though they probably know they're one of the best teams in the league, if not the best in the NFC for sure. One of the best in the NFC for sure. I think they go into every game with a chip on their shoulder. Like, people still doubt us.
Oh, I agree with that.
I think that's a lot because of the culture. Dan Campbell, the gritty, head down, get your job done kind of coaching.
Ankle biter.
Yeah.
Or kneecaps. So do you think the Vikings bubble is burst, or do you think this is they were going to lose? This is a tough game. I mean, they were 15 seconds away from winning, last second field goal. I think they're still going to be around. This is the thing. They play again the last week of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that too.
It could be for the number 1 seed.
I was looking at the schedule today, like the schedule for the Lions today, and I saw that they played last, and it was like to be determined still. And I was like, I imagine that'll be flexed to a primetime spot.
It potentially. I mean,
if it comes down to like the first seed, determining the number 1 seed, I think.
Best division in football.
For sure.
Every team is at least 2 games over 500. they're gonna. I mean, obviously they're gonna beat each other up down the road. I mean, what's sad is one of those teams is probably going to be on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Come playoff time.
Well, and I think this was the Lions' first divisional game, if I remember correctly. So they still got, they're still playing. They still have 5 games playing against the best teams.
Yeah, 2
the
against
best
the Packers, 2 against the Bears,
and 1 more against the Vikings. So, I can see it now. Yeah. I got a question for you. Packers Texans. That was one of my top games. I really enjoyed that. We talked about two of the young star quarterbacks in the league last week. Could that be Super Bowl matchup, Super Bowl preview?
Could be. I mean, I picked, so before the season started, I picked the Packers to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So I'm sticking with the Packers, even though they're in third place in the NFC North right now. I still feel like they are a team on the rise. If they can keep their wide receiver drama situated, for the thing though is this is their first win against a team with a winning record, the Packers. So that does worry me a little bit.
It was a good win.
It was a really good win against definitely a top 10 team. Getting Josh Jacobs involved and finally caught a pass, the longest streak in the NFL of a player with not catching a touchdown. My issues with the Texans though is their blocking woes. Like we talked about, they blitz the hell out of CJ Stroud. Probably his worst game of his career. 86 yards, no touchdowns, and he was pressured on 48% of his dropbacks. So, that's the thing that worries me with the Texans. Do I think the Packers can get there? Absolutely. The Texans, I think 1 or 2 weeks they look great, and the next week, I mean, I'm not saying that they didn't get blown out. Obviously, the Packers won on a last-second field goal in Lambeau, but I don't know if they have enough to still be able to compete with the Ravens or the Chiefs, in the AFC.
Yeah, I don't think. I think the signing of Stephon Diggs didn't help. I think,
no.
I thought maybe at the beginning when I heard about the signing at the beginning, I was like, oh, okay, add some more firepower. But they have a good amount of firepower already on the offense. I like the Joe Mixon signing a lot more. I think.
Yeah, if Mixon's healthy, he's definitely, and I mean, he was a guy I always loved with the Bengals.
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow's missing Mixon a lot.
I agree. Yeah. Commanders had a big win without basically Jaden Daniels, at a rib injury. Are they really that good? I mean, they played the Ravens really tough in Baltimore, lost by 7. Their only other loss was at the beginning of the year. Are they that good, or are the Panthers really that bad?
I think it's a mix of both. I think, number one, if Jaden Daniels comes back this week, and he that'll be Jaden Daniels versus Caleb Williams, which we'll talk about later. But I think if Jaden Daniels comes back this week and he remains healthy for the rest of the season, I think the Commanders are a true contender for that number 1 seed.
Well, I think
which would be hilarious for a teams to have to come to FedEx Field to play.
North, Southwest, East Stadium, whatever the heck it is now. I mean that's the thing, And you know what? The person I would be laughing the most at is Dan Snyder.
Oh yeah.
You own this team for 25 years and ran it straight into the ground.
Yep.
Probably the worst owner, and you took a team that was beloved in the area, that was, in the 70s and 80s, was in early 90s, was Super Bowl winners, contention, team that just, had so much passion and ran that organization straight into the ground, ran fans away. I mean, I don't know how many, us living in the Mid-Atlantic area, I don't know how many people would have grown up Redskin fans, became Ravens fans because the Ravens were winning
Mm-hmm.
and the Commanders weren't. And that's the one person I would laugh at the most, is just, Dan Snyder, who, I think Josh Harris definitely has the culture, turn that place around. He did spend $75 million on the stadium to try to make sure that poop pipes
Poop
weren't leaking on
pipes.
people,
Yeah.
and the railings weren't falling down on opposing players like Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with all the drama that's going on in Philadelphia and Dallas, to me, they're a clear cut right now front runner for to win the division, and probably and potentially get, with everybody beating everybody up in the NFC North. Yeah, could they potentially get the number one seed? Absolutely, but they'll definitely get, I think, a 2 or a 3 seed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think whoever comes out of the West is not going to be as good. The West is by far the worst division in the
Yeah.
NFC, for sure. And the South, you've got the Bucks, who have now lost Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin for a season ender.
Well, yeah, he's probably done. He may never be a Buccaneer again.
Yeah,
He's
I
a
mean
free agent after this season. And
yeah,
Evans, it looked like that was, he was already dealing with a hamstring. That looked like it was really serious. I mean, he was yelling.
yeah. So I mean, that could be a season ender too. I know that Chris Godwin's a season ender. They've already announced it.
Oh
I
yeah,
think he's got like a
ESPN wouldn't
broken
even show the
ankle.
replay of how bad
Yeah, I'm pretty
that
sure it
was.
was a broken ankle.
Yeah,
But
dislocated ankle, broken ankle, but
yeah,
apparently
something like that.
it was pretty bad.
Yeah, and then Mike Evans going out with with the hamstring. Who knows if he's going to come back or how
Now,
long?
the thing with the Bucks, though, not to change subject, they probably have the best three-headed monster running back in the league.
Yeah,
And we'll talk about them a little bit here in a minute.
yeah,
But yeah, I think Commanders, they definitely have a path. This is a big game this week, against Caleb. It sounds like Jaden probably could have came back into the game if he had to last week, but I mean, they were blowing out
dumpstering
the
on him.
Panthers, and Mariota was, looking good. So, and it was probably good for him to get some work.
Yeah,
In case something does happen to Daniels later
and
in the
that
season.
system's pretty good for Mariota.
Yeah.
So, I got a question for you: is Deshaun Watson's career over?
I mean, I think it's over as a full-time starter in this league. I think the best thing that could have happened to the Browns, and I'm not all for, I don't root against somebody getting hurt,
Oh yeah,
even if it's
that's
a
terrible.
despicable person like Deshaun Watson. I think it was very, very poor taste that they were,
Laughing or
cheering
cheering.
for him, going off the field. Like, I'd never want to cheer for somebody getting injured. And obviously Achilles, you can come back much faster than the years in the past. When I was young, that was like a 2-year injury. Now, obviously, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, they can come back by the beginning of next season. Obviously, they're in cap jail. They owe him, I think, $70+ million guaranteed this year, and then another $70 million guaranteed the next year. So if you trade him, you're going to have to take a big chunk of that. Now he's coming off an Achilles. Who's going to want him? They're going to have a high draft pick. So do they draft a young quarterback Sanders, kid out of Texas, um, or Carson Beck out of Georgia. Do they take a young quarterback and just tell Watson, listen, you rehab, we're gonna bring this kid along, um, and then be able to go that route. I really, I think Watson obviously wasn't lighting up the stat line. They weren't winning. I think he's done as a full-time starter in this league.
I agree. I think maybe he could be a backup somewhere, but after this contract, he's not making anywhere. He's not making half quarter of what he's making right now after this contract's over.
Yeah, that's the worst trade and probably the worst contract. One of the worst trades and arguably, but the worst contract in NFL history.
Classic Browns.
All right. The Jets, my favorite team to talk shit about. Are the Jets done? They're 2-5. They have a game against my Patriots this Sunday, which is a get-right game.
A bye, practically.
If they lose to the Patriots,
if they lose to the Patriots,
with all the moves that they've done, and they still can't win. And side note, and you said this, Beanie Bishop Jr. from West Virginia had 2 picks that changed the momentum of that game against the Steelers the other night. Shout out to the Mountaineers.
Undrafted free agent.
Mm-hmm. With all the moves that they've made, are the Jets done?
I think they're done. I don't think they're making the playoffs. I think they'll beat the Patriots this week, and I think people will be like, "Oh," especially in New York. In New York,
no, they're in New England.
No, but I'm saying like the fans in New York, they'll be like, "Oh, they're back. They're back. They beat the Patriots 40-10." And even though I think it'll be closer than the first time the Jets played the Patriots, because I think what's your quarterback's name?
Drake May.
Drake May. I think he's way better than Brissett.
Yeah.
So I think it will be a better game. I still think the Jets will win, but I don't think that changes. I think this is a collection of good players or very good players, but it's not a team. It's a collection. It's a collection of very good players, but they don't feel like a team. They feel so disconnected.
Yeah, they're playing. They're not playing together as a unit, as a team. Now, somebody did make the comparison of when Brady first went to Tampa Bay, and it took them about half the year to really start to gel and come together. But this is the thing; they were hovering around 500.
Yeah, they went into the bye around 500, and then they came out.
Yeah, and then they didn't lose again. They won out the rest of the way. So, if the Jets can somehow get to around 500 by Thanksgiving, which I always feel like is you get to that point, it's
game on.
Well, that's when the season really starts.
Yeah.
So that's what Belichick says.
Yeah.
So if you can be around 500 and play tough down the stretch. If they lose in New England, which obviously I would love to see happen, but I don't think will happen. But even if they play them close and it's like a 3 to 7 point game, yeah, they got the win. But if, let's say, New England, plays them really tough the whole game, and Rodgers throws a couple picks and they just don't look good, that doesn't bode well.
When Rodgers throws a pick or two, he looks so uncomfortable. When he throws a pick, afterwards, that next drive, he looks mad in a bad way. He doesn't look like mad as in motivated. He looks mad as in, I want to get the hell off this field.
Well, that's not what he did. I mean, he's got the greatest touchdown to interception ratio in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
And, you know, having his boy back, and Devontae Adams and that, they were up 15-6 on the Steelers. And I even texted you and I said, this team looks different.
Yeah.
They looked a little different. And you could even tell some of the, just the looks that Adams and Rodgers can give each other because they know they can read coverages and if the play calls for a certain route, but they see the coverage, they can look at each other and go, "Well, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to run over here to where this open space is, so we get the first down or whatever." That'll obviously, the more they're back together. But yeah, I just think that the Jets are definitely on shaky ground, on thin ice. Um, yeah, I just I would love to see the whole thing just crash.
I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, they're going to blow it up. I think
it'll yeah. Yeah, but I'd love to see it, where they win about 6 games this year, and yeah, I think it's just all getting blown up. Rodgers will be somewhere else next year.
If he's in the league.
You know what? I could see him. Let's say Belichick goes somewhere and they need a quarterback. Belichick absolutely loves Aaron Rodgers. I mean, used to fawn over him, even though he had Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I could see something like that where Belichick goes, brings in Rodgers, in a situation like that. Now that would mean he'd have to go to a team that needed a quarterback, but let's say it's the Giants, and
just got set.
And he goes, "Hey, Aaron, you're just driving a couple miles in the other direction to come to practice."
Chiefs 49ers. Do you think the Chiefs are a classic defense wins championship team now?
The Chiefs defense is legit, and they could definitely win games. Mahomes is playing the worst that I've ever seen him play in his entire career.
Rating, I think.
I mean, he's got 8 interceptions. They're finding ways to win. That play of him down the sideline where, going out of bounds, not going out of bounds, to me, that's just I couldn't stand that. And to me, it's almost like I would rather take a 15-yard penalty and knock that mother right out. Like I get it. Like the whole thing is you can't hit quarterbacks late, and if you think he's going out of bounds and you don't hit him, I mean that's what happened to the Bengals a couple years ago in the AFC Championship game. Where Mahomes looked like it was going out of bounds, guy hits him late, they get an extra 15 yards, get the field goal, and go to the Super Bowl. I think that the Chiefs are, especially offensively, are probably the worst 6-0 team I've seen in a long time.
It doesn't help they've lost their number one receiver and number one running back.
I get it. Other teams have injuries too.
But none of them are 6-0.
And Kelsey doesn't have any touchdowns.
True.
And, I think Kelsey cares more about his $85 million podcast and his $1 billion girlfriend. And, he's on, he's acting now and, whatever else. I mean, I think this could be his last year. I think he came in just to try to run it back to get the three-peat, but I feel like he might be mentally checking out.
Now, I think it'll change in the playoffs.
Yeah, down the stretch in the playoffs, obviously, it's a whole different thing. But yeah, it's I feel like they're gonna have this is the problem though. They're in a very weak division. Who do they play? They're playing Vegas this week, who did beat them last year.
Yeah,
but different team this year. Vegas was playing very well down the stretch when they beat them. I feel like they're probably going to go 7-0, and everybody's going to be touting them. I don't know. What do you think?
I think they are a defensive team. But I also think Mahomes, if you look at that game, Mahomes versus Purdy, if you look at the top 5, best offensive plays were all Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he is, when he needs to be, he is magical. That like shovel pass where he just threw it out, like that kind of stuff he just can do. I think it's Chris Collinsworth always says he's looking a little Mahomey, which I think I think it's annoying because he says it a lot. But Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. He's the best player in the league right now. He might not be playing the best, but we know he is the best.
Chris Collinsworth is to Patrick Mahomes what John Madden was to Brett Favre.
Yeah.
It's now, like a love affair.
Now, the second part of this question is I know Brock Purdy's your boy. You talk about how much you love him, which annoys the hell out of me because I'm a Rams fan. But is Brock Purdy worth $60 million?
Yes. For the simple fact that he got him to an NFC Championship game. He's got him to a Super Bowl. He had him up 10 points in the fourth quarter, and got him to and even in the overtime, took him down there. And if it wasn't for Chris Jones not getting blocked at all, there's a good chance that they win that Super Bowl last year. He had his worst game. He had his worst game of his career last week against Kansas City, against one of the top 3 or 4 defenses in the league. Ayuk now being out. Debo being sick right before the game, not having CMC. You want to talk about not having your weapons. He hasn't had that, and their defense has also had a lot of injuries and been banged up. So at the end of the day, I still feel like the 49ers are going to win that division. I know you hate that, but in a bad division, I feel like they're gonna end up winning. They may get the 4th seed and win a game. It really depends on who's healthy coming down the stretch. Is McCaffrey back? Is Kittle healthy and is their defense healthy? What's his name? The linebacker that tore his Achilles or whatever, no, in the Super Bowl. Was that Greenway?
Oh yeah. Greenlaw.
I think Greenlaw, where he jumped up and came down and when he tore his ACL or something. Like, he's scheduled to come back. So I mean, they've got some pieces on their way back.
But I mean, like, saying all that, you said all those players, they're all expensive players. Garoppolo got him to a Super Bowl too, had him up in a Super Bowl, just like Purdy, and they moved off of him. I think Kyle Shanahan is not the kind of coach to keep a quarterback that's underperforming.
Listen, there's a whole nother conversation here about Kyle Shanahan.
That's true.
Kyle Shanahan is 0-5 against the Chiefs in his career as a head coach. He is
in Super Bowls.
He is it was like 0-40 something when he's down 8 points in the fourth quarter. So, like, can we figure out how to make a comeback?
This is the thing with Kyle. Sorry, continue.
No, I was just saying. My thing is you've got all the talent, and some of that lays at the feet of Brock Purdy, but some of that's way before Brock Purdy with Jimmy G and so on. Like, is Kyle Shanahan, is he the genius that is, just needs to mature and get over the hump? Like, Andy Reid was like that for years in Philadelphia. He would go to NFC Championship games. He went to 1 Super Bowl and lost to the Patriots. They were always a team that was right on the brink, but Andy Reid could never, break through. And then he gets a Mahomes, breaks through, and now he's considered one of the greatest coaches of all time, where 15 years ago he was not. He got fired from Philadelphia, don't forget. Is Shanahan that guy where he just, needs to get over the hump, and once he does, then more wins will come? Or is he just a guy that has all the talent around, around him, but can't quite put everything together when it really matters.
Well, this is two things I'll say. One, I think Kyle Shanahan is he's probably the second best behind Andy Reid. He is probably the second best behind Andy Reid at play design and script design.
Over McVay?
Over McVay. But here's my caveat here. Okay. I think Kyle Shanahan can develop the first 20 plays of a game better than almost anybody in the league. Soon as he gets off script, the minute he gets off script, it's downhill. He cannot adapt. Sean McVay, on the other hand, he can design a script with the best of them. He's probably third best, in my opinion. But if he goes off script, if the game goes off script, he's not, twiddling his thumbs trying to figure it out. Where Kyle Shanahan, it feels like he can't put it together.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like Shanahan is a first half coach. You talk about halftime adjustments and making those things down the stretch. And I mean, this is the thing. For years, his dad was sort of the same way. We talk about generational talent. Listen, I remember back in the day that, Mike Shanahan, his dad, could never get over that hump. Then finally, because it was John Elway. John Elway went to 3 Super Bowls before he ever won. People kind of tend to forget that, and got blown out in all 3 of those Super Bowls against the Giants, the Redskins, and the 49ers. I mean, the worst Super Bowl loss of all time, 55-10 to the 49ers. It wasn't until they got Terrell Davis in a good defense that they ended up winning. They won back-to-back Super Bowls, and upsetting the Green Bay Packers and Brett Favre, the defending Super Bowl champions. And so yeah, there's definitely something with Kyle that is I don't know if it's a mental block or just something in that, second half, fourth quarter down the stretch where they just cannot seem to be able to get out of their own way almost.
Yeah. With that being said, they're one game out of the lead of the division. Rams are 2 games out, so if that's saying anything. But I think this is San Francisco's last ride. I think their players are getting old. They're getting more injury prone. I think this was San Francisco's last opportunity to make it deep into the playoffs and be Super Bowl contenders.
I disagree with that because I think if you have a good quarterback, you can add pieces around them to be in contention. So when you say last ride, are you saying last ride to legitimately win a Super Bowl, or are you saying last ride and they have to blow it up and start all over again?
I think this is their last ride to legitimately win a Super Bowl. I think if you look at that game, Mahomes is carrying. Yes, their defense is carrying it, the team, but Mahomes is carrying that offense. There aren't stars on that offense that are helping him out very much. But Brock Purdy, he doesn't elevate his team. His team elevates him. Because when he doesn't have these players, these star Hall of Fame players, Kittle, Debo, CMC, when he doesn't have these Hall of Fame players, Trent Williams, he looks like a 500 quarterback.
I mean, I agree with you on some of that, and disagree because I mean there were times where he made great passes and it just receivers messed up or tip ball or that was a 2-point game late into that game. So I once again I don't blame that all on. I mean, if you're the quarterback, you take none of the glory and you take all the blame. I get it, but that's not all on him.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Real quick, your Rams. Were they 2-5?
2-4.
Are they 2-4?
Yeah, because they had their bye week already.
They got they're playing Thursday night against the Vikings, coming off a tough loss to the Lions. Cooper Cup and some trade talks. So give me an update on your Rams.
I don't think we're gonna. I'm going into the Vikings game with the expectation that we're gonna lose. With that being said, I think we match up really well against them. I think we against a very blitz heavy Raiders. Stafford didn't get hit very often. He didn't. He had a couple pressures, but I think he might have had one or two sacks at most. So our offensive line's definitely coming back together. And then I also think that, and that plays into effect against the Vikings, who are a very blitz heavy team. I think they have the highest blitz percentage for their defense. And I also think, with that being said, there being such high blitz rate, their run defense kind of got exposed by the Lions last week. Gibbs went
Not
off.
the Lions, the Raiders.
No, I'm saying the
Vikings.
Vikings run defense kind of got shown off. Gibbs had a great game, and I think Kyron Williams is just as good as Gibbs, if not better. So I think he can definitely perform. And then our defense, it's young and it's still coming together, and we need to learn how to tackle better. So annoying to just see these open field missed tackles, but it's coming together. We had four turnovers, 3 interceptions, a fumble. I think
but the biggest difference is one of the reasons why the Vikings run defense got exposed a little bit is when you got to take extra people to cover Justin Jefferson, it makes a difference. You don't have Justin Jefferson, and you don't even have Cooper Kupp starting.
No. Not the line. We're going against the Vikings, so the Vikings defense, they had to spend extra people, I guess, to cover Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
But we're getting Cooper Kupp back, and I think that'll help a lot. I think Sean McVay already said he's playing Thursday, so even if we have these trade talks, I assume he's still going to be playing Thursday. It'd be pretty tough to play without him this Thursday. But I think he's going to. I mean, look at what Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford did the first year that they were together. It's not like we had Puka Nacua. It's not like we had Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams that first year. We won a Super Bowl with it. So I definitely think 9 and dime, they're going to be able to actually move the freaking ball down the field. And I think our defense is playing better, and I'm hoping that we can get some pressure on Sam Darnold, because obviously we've seen how Sam Darnold can collapse in his previous gigs with other teams when he gets pressured. So I think he's better than he was.
Different Sam Darnold.
I agree. I think he's better, but if we can get some pressure on him, our 2 rookie defensive players have one of the highest pressure rates in the league for rookies. So if we do end up trading Cooper Kupp, we should just blow the whole thing up and trade Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp and any of our old veterans and just reload. But
I don't know who you're going to send Stafford to.
Yeah.
Right now, there's really been no major quarterback injuries. I don't consider Watson, because that's a team that's not in contention. If something happens to a contending team in the next couple of weeks, then I think you could send them. But
and just because we're making calls or people are calling us doesn't mean we are going to trade them.
No,
we've got 2 or 3 games until the trade deadline. We've got 2 or 3 games till the trade deadline. So if we lose all 3 games or all 2 games, then I'm okay with trading him. Especially, I want him to go to the Chiefs because I want him to win another Super Bowl, of course. But if we beat the Vikings, and then I think we play Seattle, which Seattle's good, but they're not great. If we could beat Seattle, and Puka's coming back week 9, I believe. So I think we can still make a run. We're only 2 games back, and we beat the 49ers, so we have the tiebreaker over them right now. Now that we've talked about the Rams, obviously the Patriots are going to have a high draft pick. Rams might as well, depending on how the rest of the season goes. But the Patriots are going to have a high draft pick. What do you think? What's the status of the Patriots? what do you think they need to draft if they have number 1, number 2, number 3?
Well, let's talk about the status of the Patriots, State of the Union. They're beat up defensively. Their best defensive lineman, Barmore, is out with blood clots. He's been out all season. Their middle linebacker, their best run stopper, Bentley, is out. He's been out since week 3 or 4 with torn pec. Peppers gotten in some legal trouble. Their free safety, one of their best tackler run stoppers. Yeah. So are they soft? Like Jared Mayo said. I mean, the problem is when you're a bad team and you lose good players on a bad team, it's not like they've got studs right behind them. I know they say next man up, and everybody makes a paycheck, but it's not like you got a bunch of quality. This roster was not great to begin with. They were a 4-win team last year with the greatest coach in NFL history. Belichick's a great. I mean, he's got won 6 Super Bowls. Won 6 Super Bowls as a head coach. He's got 8 Super Bowls total. Anyway, greatest dynasty in the history of sports. Maybe next to my Celtics, who are dropping the banner tonight. But no, Drake May, I think, is the guy. I think they definitely hit on him. If he was on a better team, if he was on the Bears or the Commanders, I think he would be doing just as well. He's putting up good stats, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He just doesn't have the weapons around him. So, yeah, they're going to get a high draft pick. They could get the number 1 overall pick. If they do, they don't need a quarterback. So if it's me, I'm trading down, collecting more picks, collecting another first-round draft pick next year. Do you take Travis Hunter? An amazing dual threat type of weapon, arguably the best wide receiver in the draft, could be the best quarterback in the draft. Is he going to play both ways? Do you take the best left tackle and have somebody on that, blind side of Drake May for the next 10 years? They need a run stopping linebacker. They need an edge rusher. I mean, they've got the quarterback. They just need all the other pieces around him. And if you look at somebody like the Texans model, where, they made some trades, they traded, obviously, traded, to get, traded back up last year to get Anderson. If you look at that as a model of rebuilding, then, my thing is a quarterback-driven league. If you have the quarterback, you can put the pieces around him. You can bring in, look what Josh Allen was not Josh Allen until Stephon Diggs got there.
Yeah.
Josh Allen was struggling his first couple of years in the league, and then you bring in a number 1 receiver, and then all of a sudden he explodes. So, you have to have those pieces. That being said, I looked at their schedule. I mean, playing the Titans, and the only other game I think that they have a chance of winning, maybe, I mean, they're about a 3 to 4 win team right now at the very best. Now, Drake could get them better, and but they're going to have to win. They're going to have to score at least 30 points to win. They can't score 20 points and expect their defense to hold other teams right now.
Yeah, I know you always talking about getting a good number 1 wide receiver, because in your Madden games you always try and get Puka. Every time we talk about how your Madden seasons are going, you're like, yeah, I traded for Puka my first year. I'm like, what the hell? What are the Rams doing?
Or I draft the number 1 and develop them, and but yeah, you have to have that number 1 receiver. You have to have that game-changing receiver. So let's look ahead to week 8. I was looking over the schedule.
There's not too many barn burners this time around like last week.
No, there's not a lot of big-time games to speak of. Ones I want to kind of point out, we kind of hit on it a little bit. Commanders versus Bears, number 1 versus number 2 draft pick. The Bears defense doesn't play as well when they're away from Soldier Field.
No, I agree.
If Daniels is healthy, this could be the game of the week, if you ask me. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it could definitely be the game of the week. I have another contender for game of the week, but I think if Daniels is healthy, I think this is a really good game, and I would be willing to if I was a betting man, I'd put money on the Commanders here. Even though the Bears are coming off of a bye, I don't think buys help defensive coaches as much. I think buys are more, lean towards the offensive side just because the league's an offensive league. So if Daniels is healthy, I think
the Commanders had kind of a bye last week playing the Panthers. Even though Daniels did get hurt. Chicago's favored by 2.5, which I think is shocking to me.
Now, how much is that because Daniels is questionable?
That's the thing. If Daniels is playing, I think that line probably goes closer to even.
Yeah. I would put money on the Commanders right now because of what they've said that Daniels could have come back in. I would put money on the Commanders and take the points because I think Jaden Daniels is coming back, and right now I think Jaden Daniels is a better quarterback than
Caleb. And the Commanders are at home.
And the Commanders are at home.
And what's funny is they've been winning, and that place, last year, that place was 75% the opposing team.
You can barely see any red.
I've talked to some people that have went to games, and they said it's about 75-80% Commanders fans. Which every game's going to have opposing fan.
Yeah.
Like I went to the Ravens Bills game with Ethan, and there was a good 15-20% Bills fans. So
we went to the Ravens game, which is completely different conferences, all the way across the country. And there were still, there probably weren't as many Bills fans,
I'd say
Rams
10 to 15% Rams. But DC and Baltimore, that area is very, there's a lot of people there from other places. Right. But what I've heard is that place is rocking. And when you win, people will come.
Yep.
So, I think that's going to be probably my game of the weekend. They moved it to, I think, 4:30. I think it was a 1:00 game. They moved it to 4:30. I wonder if Brady's going to be calling that game because it's on Fox.
Good game.
No, it's on CBS. So it's a 4:25 on C. That's weird because CBS usually has the AFC.
Yeah.
So that's a Tony Romo game. So what do you think is going to be the game of the weekend?
I don't know if this is game of the weekend. I think Bears and Commanders are up there. This could be 1 and 2. But I think the Niners Cowboys could be game of the week. And I don't think it's because, either team are phenomenal right now. But I think, it's a very classic matchup. And it's two teams that are really struggling, that both of these teams really need this win.
Must win for both teams.
Both sides, yeah. If the Cowboys lose this game, we're not even talking about them in playoff contentions anymore. And if the Niners lose this game, we're going to start to question if they can make the playoffs.
Well, yeah, Niners will be 3-5 if they lose. Cowboys will be 3-4, and after getting blown out by the Lions, and
coming off a bye,
and losing to the Steelers before that, getting blown out earlier, or beating the Steelers, but barely beating the Giants. But the Ravens game was 28-25, but it wasn't. That game was over way before. There was a lot of garbage time, and then getting blown out by the Saints. And then
the Cowboys really haven't had a good game this year.
No, I mean they beat Cleveland at the beginning of the year, which we felt like was probably a good win at the time, but obviously now in retrospect, Cleveland's not a good team.
Yeah, they're a terrible team.
Yeah, after this they've got at the Falcons, which is gonna be a tough game.
Oh, yeah.
Eagles in Dallas, which is
that's a divisional game, tough game.
And then Texans coming to Dallas on a Monday night, and then at the Commanders. So I mean, their next 4 games after this are not easy.
Yeah, I mean, we could be looking at them at the end of this stretch. They're 3-3 right now. They could be, 4-7, 3-8 at the end of this stretch. And their schedule honestly doesn't get any easier. They play the Giants one more time this season, but most of the teams they're playing against, I think I was looking other than the Bengals and the Giants, I think every team they play against is above 500 right now or at 500, and that takes out the Bengals, who I think
they play the Panthers.
Okay, so they play the Panthers, the Giants, and the Bengals that are all below 500. But other than that,
and the Bengals are on the come up.
Yeah, and I think by the time they get to the Bengals will be above 500.
I agree.
At 500, because that's later.
And that's a Monday night game too.
So, I mean, this team might not even be a 6-win team.
6 or 7 wins, I think that's what they're looking at right now. And I said that they were going to be third place in the division, and I was laughed at.
Not by me, because I completely agree with you.
And and then Jerry Jones goes on the radio, and I felt like he was trying to almost got those guys fired, and he was on the radio again yesterday saying Derrick Henry wouldn't have been a good fit because of the offense they run and everything else. You don't think Dak Prescott would love to get under center, turn around, and hand the ball off to Derrick Henry 20 times a game?
Yeah, for what did Derrick Henry's contract? What, $8 million, something like that?
Yeah, you tell me you couldn't find that money.
Yeah,
and
that's
for a guy
cheap.
that wanted to be a Cowboy who works out in the offseason in Dallas, it's the biggest joke that he wouldn't have been a good fit, or he they run a different kind of offense. Like, you adapt for a guy like that.
And it's not like, okay, you don't want to get Derrick Henry. Okay, whatever. He wouldn't have been a good fit. Okay. But you're telling me that Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones, who are both also available, wouldn't have been good fits? Or Eckler or Saquon? You're telling me any of those players wouldn't have been a good fit? They're all different types of they're all different types of running backs. One of them had to have been a good fit. So it's BS that Derrick Henry's not a good fit.
I think it's that he's paying $60+ million to Dak, and he wants the offense to run through Dak, and they're not going to be good until they get another basically a new GM, because he's the owner and GM. He's the only owner that goes on and has a press conference after every game.
Yep.
And talks on the radio every week and undermines his entire coaching staff.
I don't even know any GMs that go on press conference after every game.
No.
So he's the only owner and GM that goes on that I can think of.
I mean, the thing is, I guess if they're talking about you, that's good. But if you don't win, and they went all in this year.
Yeah.
So
all in.
The other game we kind of touched on a little bit, Eagles versus Bengals. Both teams have something to prove. The Eagles, their coach is an absolute clown show, if you ask me. Yelling at his fans, and after a win, barely beating the Browns. Now, Saquon had a revenge game last week and blew out the Giants, but the Bengals on a come up. My boy Joey Burrow, one of my other adopted sons, playing some of the best quarterbacking of the whole season. So, that's a game that both those teams need to stay relevant.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, might not have been last game. but maybe the week before, Joe Burrow had the highest passer rating in the league so far. It might have even been this game. I'm not exactly sure. But he's definitely one of the highest. So he is playing very well. Even though they don't have a winning record, he is playing very well. And I think Jamar Chase is obviously playing better. They need to, like I said earlier, I think they're missing Joe Mixon a lot. I think their run game definitely needs to get better. But I agree, they do have something to prove. But on the Eagles side, Saquon Barkley is the best running back in the league right now.
I agree. Well,
with CMC
I don't know.
out,
I don't think he's better than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is the greatest. He's the best closer in the league. Like he was running last night against Tampa. He got 21 miles an hour. Nobody wants a piece of that.
No, I don't disagree. I think Derrick Henry is probably one of the best, if not the best closer in the league when it comes to running backs. But I mean, Derrick Henry's a downhill punch you in the face running back.
Hey, he caught a touchdown last night.
And he did catch a touchdown, but Saquon is way more versatile in both the running back and the receiving back role. Both RBs.
Saquon is right up there, top 2-3 running back in the league. I mean, the dumbest thing the Giants could have done was let him walk. Over basically about $1 million. And I think even if they matched, Saquon was still leaving. I think he felt so disrespected in New York. And he wanted to go play for a contender.
He has the most rushing yards in MetLife of any player.
Yeah, I know. So one of the things that we like to do at the end of every show is our top 5. So last week we did top 5 fast food French fries. This week we're going to get back on the sports side. Top 5 NFL running backs of all time. And now I'm very passionate about this. And me, my list, I've seen 4 out of the 5 players that I'm going to put on this list, and like I've seen them play the game. Unlike you,
I've seen one, I think.
Yeah. So you go ahead. You go first.
So I'll go first, like you said. One of
go 5 to 1. So you're starting
lowest to highest. One of, in my opinion, the best players to never win a Super Bowl. And my number 5 position in my top 5 for running backs, greatest running backs of all time, is Barry Sanders. I think
Barry Sanders at number 5.
Yes. I think he is an absolute stud of a player. I think he is, just untouched in that role. When it comes to running backs that didn't win a Super Bowl, he's up there. And I think if him and Emmitt Smith, were it switched, I think he would have won just as many Super Bowls. I think Emmitt Smith benefited a lot from being on a winning culture. My number 4 position, as a Rams fan, got to go with Eric Dickerson.
I love the goggles, upright running back.
Yep. I think he holds the record for all-time rushing yards in a season. If I remember correctly, it's like 2,000 yards, somewhere in there.
It was like 2,100. Yeah.
So, and he's also up there in one of the best running backs of all time that has never won a Super Bowl. So Eric Dickerson, number 4. Number 3, a player who doesn't have a very long career, but that career was very impactful, and that's Bo Jackson at number 3. He only played, I think for like 3 or 4 years. But
he is the greatest athlete I've ever seen play sports. I'll just put it to you that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, the only reason he's not higher is because he only played for 3 or 4 years.
Well, and the thing is, he if that injury happened today, he would have came back and played.
Yeah.
But because of when it happened in 1990, I think,
90 to 1.
And he basically his leg came out of his hip socket, and because he had so much torque, and when he got tackled, it ripped out.
Yeah.
And like I said, if that happened today, he might not be the same player, but he would have came back.
Yeah. Number 2, face of one of the most prestigious awards in the NFL, Walter Payton. He has a Super Bowl MVP. Oh, sorry, I think he won a Super Bowl. He won
a Super Bowl
MVP. I think he won the MVP, like the NFL MVP. Hall of Famer, 15,000 career rushing yards, something like that. So and obviously, like I said, is the face of the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. So he's number 2, and then number 1, probably the best. Obviously, in my opinion, the best running back of all time. Probably a lot of people's best running back of all time is Jim Brown. I'm pretty sure he won the NFL MVP 3 times. And he just has I think he won a championship, right?
He won several championships with the Browns.
Yeah, but they weren't the
They were in the NFL. No, it was pre-Super Bowl.
They won the Super Bowl. It was pre-Super Bowl. So they won the championship.
It was in the 50s.
Yeah. So he won the championship a couple of times, and he won MVP a couple of times, which nowadays running back will never win MVP. It'll be very difficult. Maybe CMC could have, but and he, in my opinion, is just enshrined in the Hall of Fame. He's the best running back to ever play the game.
So my list and your list, 4 out of the 5 are the same. We're just in different orders.
Okay.
All right. So my number 5 is the 5th all-time leading running back in yards. You talk about, we talk about generational talents. He's a guy, I remember watching his first game in the NFL for the Vikings. And he broke a run, and I said, this guy is different than anybody else I've seen in a long time, and that's Adrian Peterson.
He's the first off my list.
He is a guy that I just remember he was a load to bring down, could make cuts. I mean, he tore his ACL and came back and rushed for 2,000 yards. Like, he is a man. Now, towards the end of his career, played for a lot of different teams. Never won a Super Bowl, but he is by far, he's got to be in my top 5. Number 4, the all-time leading rusher in the NFL, Emmitt Smith. Now, the thing with Emmitt wasn't that big, wasn't that tall. Early in his career, he played for the Super Bowl winning Cowboys, which, never hear that again, anymore. But played behind arguably one of the greatest offensive lines in NFL history. It was the greatest line of his time. Won 3 Super Bowls. Had a Hall of Fame quarterback in Troy Aikman, Hall of Fame wide receiver Michael Irvin. Had a all pros all over the defense. I mean, that was obviously won 3 Super Bowls in the 90s. Was a dynasty. So. But I put him a 4th on my list because, like you said, if he was on another team, would he be that great? And that's hard. That's. I mean, we'll never know. But if he got drafted by the Dolphins, would he have? He still would have been a great player, but would he have been what he turned out to be? Number 3. This is the only player I never saw in person. Is a guy that changed the game. We just talked about him, especially for minority players. So you don't, probably you didn't even kind of put together is Jim Brown being a black player coming into the league in the 1950s, being as dominant as he was. I mean, he was basically a man among boys, dominating. And there's an article. So you know who Maury Povich is? The guy, So his dad used to write for the Washington Post. Mm-hmm. There's an article after the Browns absolutely destroyed the Redskins back in the 50s. The Redskins were the last team to bring in black players. And there was no black players on this team, and they won by several touchdowns, and he ran up and down the field. And basically it was this is why you go out and bring in a player like this. And he absolutely did change the game. And he led the league. When he retired, he was a leading rusher of the NFL and changed the game. And, he did that in playing 12 games a season. Yeah. Number 2 is sweetness, Walter Payton. One of the greatest running backs I've ever seen. Had one of the best, biggest hearts. He was taken too early from us. Obviously the Walter Payton Award is named after him. But he is, was on that Bears team that was known for their defense. They didn't always have the best offensive guys. And one of the biggest tragedies in NFL history was they blow out the Patriots in the 1985 Super Bowl, and he does not score a touchdown. They're on the goal line, and they give it to the fridge. He scores a touchdown. He does not get in. I think Mike Ditka even said later, that was one of his biggest regrets was not, getting Walter Payton into the end zone during the Super Bowl. But, when he retired, he was the all-time leading rusher in the NFL until Emmitt Smith broke his record. But, yeah, just ultimate gamer. Number 1, to me, well, before I get there, honorable mention for Bo Jackson. Like I said, greatest athlete I've ever seen, and just a guy played both, football and baseball. Was an All-Pro in both. If you don't know a lot about Bo Jackson, go watch his 30 for 30. And what's funny is I watched it with your brother Ethan a couple of years ago, and I did not tell him what was going to happen to Bo Jackson. And when we got to the injury, Ethan was almost like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And the guy still came back and played baseball and made an all-star team. Yeah. So honorable mention to him. And I think what his career's done, Derrick Henry might be on this list.
I agree. I agree.
So honorable mention to him. But number 1 to me is the greatest running back I've ever seen is Barry Sanders. The guy you talk about making turns in a phone booth. The guy would make people look silly. And the thing is, he only made it to the playoffs a couple times. He beat the Cowboys in the playoffs in 1991. Then lost to the Redskins before they went to the Super Bowl. But he, was probably one of the greatest running backs of all time on one of the worst teams and retired early. Emmitt Smith said if he didn't retire, I never would have broke that record. Barry Sanders would have ran away with it.
Yeah.
So that's why I put him at number 1. And it's funny, we talk about the Lions right now and, how lovable they are in America's team. The Lions have been terrible for decades, and they made 2 of the best players at their positions, and Barry Sanders and Megatron Calvin Johnson retire early because of how bad their organizations were. Yeah. And your quarterback came from that organization and finally got to win a Super Bowl after, losing in the playoffs I don't know how many times. So, but Barry Sanders, if you haven't, seen his highlights, go look it up on YouTube, or actually go watch. There's a documentary about him. Yeah. I think it's on Prime or Netflix. I think it's called Barry. But go watch that, and because this is the thing with Barry Sanders, he still has NCAA records to this day.
And they
30+ years ago. almost 40 years ago that still stand today when he played at Oklahoma State.
Yep.
So, he was just, outstanding. So anyway, that's my top 5. Well, Ethan, Matthew, great doing this with you again. We've got, like I said, don't have a ton of great matchups this weekend. We'll see how the games shake out. Any predictions that you have for this week? Anything that you're going to throw out there that might be a little crazy?
Like I told you, I think Jaden Daniels is going to win. If he's healthy, Jaden Daniels wins.
The Commanders.
Yep, the Commanders wins. And you know what? I'll just say, I think the Rams are going to win this weekend. I said earlier that I'm going into the game thinking that we're going to lose. That's how everybody's saying all the Rams are going to lose. They're going to lose to the Vikings. We're going to win this game. I think the Rams are going to win. I wouldn't put money on it, but I think the Rams are going to win.
So my big prediction, I think Indianapolis is going to upset the Texans. Yeah. I feel like that could be the upset of the weekend. Colts over the Texans. Not guaranteeing it, but I feel like that could happen. So other than that, I just nothing jumps off the page to me.
Yeah, this week's pretty cut and dry for the favorites.
So once again, appreciate you guys for following, listening to us. If you like this, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, comment in the comment section. It helps the algorithm, helps us grow. If there's anything that you guys have questions on, anything that you guys want us to talk about, maybe a top 5 that you guys want us to do, please, let us know. Comment in the comment section, and we enjoy this. We enjoy getting together, talking about football. We'll touch on some other things, later. Like I said, my Celtics dropping banner number 18. I love it. And then, we got Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series, so we can touch on that a little bit. 2 teams that I can't stand, but I definitely don't. I'm definitely not rooting for the Yankees. I can tell you that as a liking the Red Sox, and even though I do like the Nationals and I do love Juan Soto, I'm not rooting for the Yankees. I just can't. I know too many Yankee fans that are friends that will just be they're like Cowboys fans. They're just the worst. So appreciate you guys watching, listening, and we'll come at you again next week.
Yep. Looking forward to talking to you guys all next weekend or next week.
All right.